Being part of a building for a World Expo is really like a dream come true.
We decided, okay, we have to join this. And since we are a young office, and of course it's the biggest dream you have. And the next step was just sitting down and thinking about this very weird context about a desert and something about water, energy and food. But how do you do that in these kind of scarce conditions? It's almost like a mission to Mars. So we really felt that if you make this building, if you make the structure, it has to be about water, energy and food. So that's where the whole concept comes from, that we're going to make the building as a harvesting machine, which is harvesting water, energy and food itself. Maybe you could even say that it's not a building, it's much more a climate, what we are making.
And the whole design process was always going back to the person who's visiting your pavilion. What does the person standing there is going to experience? What is he going to feel, taste, hear? How are we going to trigger the sensors?
I think because we were able not to talk about architecture as an abstract, but to really make it tangible, to link nature with technique, natural effects with technical innovations, and make that in a beautiful way accessible to people. What do you see, what do you hear, what do you smell? And everybody can understand that.
I brought in the whole design, development, the idea of creating a visitor machine. The whole flow of visitors is so important. There's so many visitors and they all want to see as many pavilions as possible. So the pavilion should be a logistic machine. And that's, I think, what we brought in as one of the drivers of the design process.
We are architects, we cannot build, so we need a builder. And we are architects, we cannot engineer, so we need an engineering firm. And we are architects, but we don't know how to make this fantastic show in the pavilion. So we invited 3 crucial companies. That's Witt Van Bos, Cosman de Jong and Expomobilia. And together we made this consortium.
And I think that process was really valuable and what made in the end that it became sort of like, yeah, you could say a Gesamtkunstwerk. It's not just a building, but the whole exhibition is the building because there's all these different elements integrated into the design.
And I think that choice, those combination of 4 companies and the energy between those 4 has been crucial for the success.
I think the idea behind is very clear because we want to be very sustainable. Sustainability means all the materials you reuse shall be reused once after the event.
We use sheet piles. They have been used already for the harbor here. They will be used after the expo in another project.
And this goes back to every detail, like, okay, are we going to put a bolt here or are we going to weld it? What causes more CO2? How can we dismantle it again? And yeah, this counts for every small part of the building. So if people sort of realize as being in there, like, hey, this material is going to be reused one-to-one, that is where we need to go in the future for the building industry and in general. And if you just get this into the heads of people, I would be very happy.
Normally in civil engineering, everything that we design is not being seen again. There'll be a facade to cover it. And in this project, in this building, everything is inside. And it shows the functions really clearly.
Since the beginning or till the beginning, you have not been allowed to make a mistake, which can be cut later on, or can be covered later on, or can be remounted. So this was absolutely not possible.
I think if it's pure and it's real what you see, then it always has a sort of a beauty. I mean, who would think that a sheet pile, if you see it singular, it's not a beautiful thing. But if you place them like this in this hall with the skylight, suddenly it feels like the steel church that people refer to it as now.
It's just perfect in its honesty.
What makes me really proud is the fact that we have no concrete in the pavilion and not even in the foundations. And this again was really a change in mindset also for the local architect of records. But still we were able to do it.
So this structure is completely in steel. It's approximately more than 2,300 tons. And we really have monster dimensions, like the biggest diameter of a tube is 1,600 mm. And one tube with a 22-meter span is about 4 tons.
To see the result now of this profile being this rough and going up 18 meters, yeah, that really makes it into a really powerful gesture, you could say.
2,400 pots were placed there before the plants came, and we had to test the drippers, the irrigation system, the adiabatic cooling, because once the pots, including the plants, are placed, you can do nothing. So it was very important to have these really clear sequences to be sure everything from the layer starting is working well. And looking at the cone now, since 14 days we have finished the plants, they are growing. Shortly we will have the pleasure to see the first tomatoes.
The fact that the building is a factory is also something we enhanced. For example, the going down on the ramps and you hear the steel sounds, the swoosh of the windmills, and so in all different kind of aspects we emphasize this rough and bold building and the fact that it's a factory.
Also the idea that the whole building is a biotope in which food is being created by harvested water from the air, being fed by energy from the solar panels, and making a kind of closed circuit with these three elements creating food. That is of course an amazing idea and something great to try to tell and show to the audience in a special way.
On the roof there is the water maker. It's a Dutch innovation where we harvest our own water out of the air.
Out of air means from the humidity, and this water is used to feed the shower head, which is part of the show, to flow down to our tank and then to be recycled and to go back.
It's 800 liters per day, and we will use this water to irrigate the plants on the cone. So we have our own eatable plants on the cone. It's almost 10,000 plants. But then they need energy as well. So we will produce our own energy with solar panels. You see it, they're solar panels, however, there's still light coming through. That's a special innovation as well. So uniting water, energy and food, you don't tell it, you show it.
We first presented the design to the local architect of records, and after the presentation he immediately said, look guys, this is not the way we make buildings in Dubai. I said, no, but this is a World Expo, explaining, yeah, but still, this is not the way we make buildings here.
Nothing is normal about the building, and all building regulations are made for normal buildings. So suddenly you have to explain them that a sheet pile this thick is also fireproof, but nowhere in the law there it stated that this is allowed. So for this step we had to convince people like, no, but we're doing this because of this and this reason. Again, going back to the circularity, to sustainability.
And in the end, it turned out to be that we were able to make sure that the concept of the building remained. And structurally and installation-wise, we made some changes to make it more applicable to the local regulations.
I think the biggest challenge was to tell the story. It's a quite intellectual story, the connection of water, energy and food, the nexus, and how to convey that message to a big audience. That was, I think, the biggest challenge. Create a story that maybe not everybody directly understands, but that it's sticking to their minds and that it touches their hearts.
So we came up with the idea of making just three figures, three living creatures. One is water, one is energy, and one is food. And to show that the only solution is when they work together on things to solve problems in the world. That was one big breakthrough in the creative process of this project.
That is what the Pavilion is doing. It is looking at the world and offering solutions on a micro scale. And then with this in mind, people are ready for the next stage, which is the main show. And we can tell the story in a more poetic way and in a less rational way.
We could only give people a wow experience by then, because they already knew what it was about because of the pre-show story.
From the very start, V8 came up with the idea to have it rain in the pavilion. And that was of course a real interesting and inspiring phenomenon. That it would rain in the pavilion, that it would rain in a desert, that's of course outrageous. And this inspired us to come up with the idea of using umbrellas. And not particularly to catch the rain or protect you from the rain, but to catch stories and use the umbrella as a projection screen.
From the beginning we knew that music would be of great importance. So composers were from the beginning on involved in this project. Then, when we entered the cone for the first time with our movie and with the music track, we were able to work with spatial audio. So sometimes there's a violin which plays a solo, and it's almost like a butterfly flying through the space of the cone, which is really giving something extra to the experience. Watching a movie on an umbrella, it's so simple, but it's also so magical. I really hope that it will engage a large group of the audience in a special way.
We started, I think, 3 years ago with the whole setup and design, and the building is now almost ready, and it looks like it was proposed 3 years ago. So I'm really proud and also surprised to see, wow, this is it.
This was a building where you just had to switch off your autopilot, because by all means there was no way that you knew in advance the correct route you had to take to get to the end result. And that is what made the whole process unique. We had to find solutions for things we thought we didn't have to find solutions for in the beginning, but still we had to come up with these solutions, and that made it really nice also to work on.
And I think sustainability is also about hope, about confidence, about optimism, that yes, if you're able to link new technologies with nature, we have to relate to nature rather than to distinct ourselves from nature. I think if people remember that, they understand the power of nature, and I think that's a big win.
They don't need to know every detail. I think it's just the overall experience, which should be a positive one, which should maybe even be a message of hope. And I think then we really achieved something special.
So I think at the end of the trip, people will say, okay, this is by far the best pavilion that we visited.